Everyone, I hope you've had a great week. Today we're going to walk through lessons 129 to 132. So let's get started. This week you're going to need your lessons manual, the student worksheet book, the math card games manual with the game cards. You'll need the Casio SL450S calculator. You'll need your dry erase board. You'll want to get your geometry panels, the geometry solids, the centimeter cubes, and the 4-in-1 ruler. So this is the last week of new material. We are getting close to the end of level C. This week, your child is going to learn about negative numbers and also learn about prisms, pyramids, and cubes. So let's get started by turning to lesson 129. In the warm-up, you're going to have your child complete section 3 of warm-up practice sheet number 8. As always, the answers are listed in the lesson manual. Now look at the section called temperatures below zero. Here you're going to start off by asking your child questions about different temperatures and have your child calculate the temperatures. So for example, it's going to say if it's 10 degrees outside and it gets 1 degree cooler, what's the new temperature? So it'll be 9 degrees. Then you're going to keep going. What if it drops another 3 degrees? What if it drops down a little bit more? And so you're going to get to the 0 degrees. Then you're going to ask your child what happens if the temperature continues to drop after it's already at 0. So we're going to introduce negative numbers through temperatures. After that, you're going to have you are actually going to draw a thermometer as shown in the lesson manual, the bottom of the first page of the lesson. And then you're going to discuss the negative number and how it's written using the minus sign or the negative sign. Then you're going to ask questions to your child and have them find different temperatures on that written thermometer. Now, on the second page of the lesson, you're going to ask similar questions as you did with the temperatures, except you're going to have your child enter those numbers on the calculator. So for example, you're going to have your child enter 2 on the calculator and then subtract 1 from that, and they're going to get 1. And then they're going to subtract 1 again, and then they're going to get 0. And then you're going to ask them to subtract 1 again, and then they are going to see that they're going to get a -1. You're going to see the -1 on the calculator. After that activity, you're going to then play the game Below Zero Corners game to practice calculating and adding to negative numbers. Now, there is not a blog for this game, but it is played just like the regular corners game. But the difference is the starting score is a -100. So if your child has a -100 and their first score they get is a +10, they take -100 plus +10 to get -90. Now, the winner of this game is the person who has the highest score. Once they finish that game, then they're going to play another version of the corners game called Negative Corners Game. Now, in this version, your child is going to subtract their scores, and you will actually start the scoring in a different place. So for example, if you have 2 players, your score is going to start at 200. If you have 3 players, your score is going to start at 150. And if you have 4 players, your score is going to start at 100. Then after each play, your child is going to subtract their score from their total. So if you have a score of 100 and then they score 10 on their most recent play, then you take 100 minus 10 to get 90. Now, the winner of this version of the game is the player who has the lowest score. All right, well, let's go ahead and turn to lesson 130. For the warm-up, your child is going to complete section 1 from warm-up practice sheet number 9. Again, the answers or solutions are listed in the lesson manual. You're going to start this lesson by drawing a thermometer, just like you did in the previous lesson, but you're going to have the different numbers. So draw your thermometer as shown in the first page of the lesson. Then you're going to start off by asking questions about temperature, having your child find various temperatures after they do some calculations. So the first one would be 5 minus 5 equals 0. And so they're going to find the 0 on the thermometer. Now, your child can use the thermometer as a reference if they need. However, don't encourage that. If your child is able to calculate these temperatures or negative numbers, great. Don't require them to use the thermometer, but use it if they can. See if your child can try it without it. Don't require it, but use as necessary. You're going to continue to ask more questions. In fact, you might want to add, I think I had to add a number of questions to this section for my child to get very comfortable with these type of problems, working into the negative numbers. So if your child needs more practice with these problems, just keep asking more and more questions. After you finish completing that activity, you're going to play on the number -5 game. And that game is similar to the on the number 10 game, which we do have a blog for, and it is called 2018 Summer Game number 13 on the number 10. Now, you will definitely want to look up those differences because it is played differently from on the number 10 game because we're working on negative numbers. So make sure you check that difference. But to find out generally how to play the game, you can watch that blog. Then you're going to play one of my favorite games. It's called Top and Bottom Corners. And we do have a blog for that game. It is called 2017 Summer Game number 15, Top and Bottom Corners. Now, in this version, you're going to start with a score of -50. And how this game is played is basically any score that you get that's vertical, you get to add those totals. So if I have a tile here and a tile there that totals 10, then I get to add 10 to my total. Any number that is any cards that you add or any scores that you get that are on the horizontal way. So you have a tile here and a tile there that adds together to equal 10, then you subtract. Horizontally, you subtract. Vertically, you add. Fun game. Loved that game. All right, well, let's go ahead and turn to lesson 131. Now, if your lesson manual was printed in 2019 or before, there are a couple corrections that you need to make for this lesson. So make sure you make those changes prior to start teaching this lesson. Also, if you purchased the electronic worksheets that was printed or purchased in 2019 or before, there is also a correction for worksheet number 88 as well. So make those changes before you print out or before you give the worksheet to your child. Now, for the warm-up of this lesson, you're going to have your child complete section 2 from warm-up practice sheet number 9. As always, the answers are listed in the lesson manual. Now look at the section called Building a Cube. Here you're going to show your child how to build a cube using the geometry panels. Now, if you've not used the geometry panels before, the first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to take these edges and you're going to bend them in. So you're going to have them bent in towards the color of the panel. So you don't want to have them bend out towards the white, bending them in towards the color. Then you're going to take two panels, and you're going to fit them together so that the two edges work. And so really what I do is I just kind of line them up back to back when I first start anyway. And then I take a rubber band and I just hook it on one side of that and then come over and hook it on the other side. And I have connected the panels. Then when I'm ready to add another one, I'm just basically going to take my two panels, line up my next one, and hook that rubber band together, or use a rubber band to hook these two together. So now I would have three work together. So now they can bend, I don't know if you can see this, bend so that they're going to form the cube. And the final cube looks like this. So you're going to have a top and a bottom and all the way around. Now, once you have that cube built, you're going to give your child worksheet 88 and have them build the 7 shapes pictured on the worksheet. Now, when I did this, I found that it was easier anyway, if I started with the base of the shapes. For example, if you look at the triangular prism, you have a triangle shape, and then you're going to connect to that the square shape. So these are going to be connected on these different sides. If I start with the base, it lets me know kind of how, it makes it a little easier when I'm assembling the pieces, so I know where I am in that. So kind of like a helpful hint. So you start with that, the base, and then work it up, and it makes it a little easier to assemble. Now, when building the pyramids, you're going to do the same thing. You start with the base. So for the triangular pyramid, you start with the triangle, and you're going to add the triangles from there to build up. When you are building the square pyramid, start with the square and put the triangles on each of those sides and build it up from there. That's just a little easier to keep track of where you're doing, and then makes it a little easier when assembling the piece. Look at the section called faces, edges, and vertices. In this section, you're going to explain to your child what a face, edge, and vertex is. Now, vertex simply means singular of a vertices. So let me show you what they are. So if here's my cube. A face is one side of this. So here's one face. Here's another face. So it's one side of the shape. Edges is kind of clear, but edges, like this would be an edge. Now the vertices or vertex would be one point on the edge, on the corner. Vertices would be more than one. So all of these put together, these are all vertices. Then you're going to go ahead after you've completed assembling all of the shapes, and you've talked about faces, edges, and vertices. Then you're going to get out your geometry solids. Now, the names of the solids are shown in the middle of the second page of the lesson. And you're going to need that because your child is going to fill out the table on the worksheet, asking questions about the faces, edges, and vertices of some of those prisms and pyramids that's included in those geometry shapes. So you know which shape goes with what name. Make sure you view that chart in there. Also, be sure that you will also need to reference the shapes that your child built, specifically the triangular pyramid and the pentagonal pyramid. Those are not included in the geometry solids, the wooden pieces. So you're going to need to have your child reference the shapes that they built, not the wooden shapes that you have in those solids. Now, there is not a math card game listed for this lesson, so make sure you play a game that's going to keep your child's math facts strong. Also, make sure that you keep that cube for the next lesson, lesson 132, as they're going to need it for them, for that lesson. The rest of the shapes, you can go ahead and break down, or my kids just like to keep them up, so it's up to you, but you will not need the rest of the shapes for the next lesson. Well, let's go ahead and turn to lesson 132. Now, the warm-up for this lesson is going to have your child complete section 3 of warm-up practice sheet number 9. As always, the answers are listed in the lesson manual. Now, look at the section called Worksheet 89. To prepare for this worksheet, you're going to need to get out and give your child the centimeter cubes. You're also going to want to get out of the geometry solids the wooden cube, and you're also going to need the cube that they built in the previous lesson, the yellow cube. Now you're going to show your child these 3 cubes, if you'll notice it in the middle to the bottom of the first page of the lesson. And then at the bottom of the lesson is going to have a bunch of questions that you are going to ask your child based on those 3 cubes. Now, on the top of the second page of the lesson, you're going to have your child measure the lengths of each of one of the edges of the cube. So for the centimeter, and you're going to do this in centimeters. So for the centimeter cube, this one here, you're going to just measure this side, which measures 1 centimeter. For the wooden cube, you're just going to measure this edge here, which is going to be 5 centimeters. And for the yellow cube, you're going to measure from here to here, which gives you 10 centimeters. Now, you're not going to measure from the edge. You're going to measure from the edge of the shape. So if you'll take a look, I'm going to line up my ruler where the rubber band is really, and I'm going to measure all the way to the other, you can't see that because I didn't put that rubber band on. Here we go. So we're going to measure from one rubber band to the other rubber band, and that will measure 10 centimeters. We're not going to measure all the way from the edge of the shape because that's going to give us a little bit more than 10 centimeters. So make sure you start that measurement at the right location. Once your child measures those shapes, then go ahead and have them fill in that first column on the worksheet. Then you're going to talk about face area, and you're going to remind your child what area is. Now, just so you remember, area is side times side for a two-dimensional shape. So here's our face, right? Our face is just one side of the shape, and we're going to, we've already know this measurement is 10, and we already know this measurement is 10, and we're going to multiply that together. 10 times 10 equals 100. So that's going to be the face area for the yellow cube in the chart. Now that file, you'll do that for all three shapes, the centimeter cube, the wooden cube, and the yellow cube. Once the second column is completed, then you're going to discuss volume, which is the final column in that table. And if you look down under that section called Introducing Volume, that's where you're going to talk to your child about what volume is and explain to them that they are actually multiplying three different directions. So if I have my cube, for the face area, which is just this, we multiplied this side times this side, 5 times 5. But for a volume, we have to multiply three different directions. We have side, the width times the height times the depth. So we're going to multiply that same number 3 times. So 5 times 5 times 5, which equals 125 centimeters cubed. Then you're going to have your child complete worksheet 89 on their own if possible. Now, there is not a math card game listed for this lesson, so make sure you pick a game that will keep up your child's math facts. Well, that's it for the week. If you have any questions or concerns about a lesson, or if your child is struggling with something, give us a call or email us. We are here to help. I look forward to seeing you next week as we cover lessons 133 to 136 as we start working on review and assessment lessons. Have a great week, everybody.